for you. If you want some examples of their past work and maybe a little bit of inspiration, if you've been saying, hey, I really want to trick out my man cave. I want to build a man cave from scratch. I want to mount that new TV in my living room, upgrade the size. If you want to have a great outdoor patio set up or on your screen porch to enjoy the weather, the outdoors, while you're checking out your favorite sports action, they can help make that happen for you. Go check out their Facebook page or their Instagram account, Integrated Media Columbia. You can also visit their website. Find out more about their services, what they can do for you, integratedmediainc.com, or give them a call, 803-948-8327. That's Michael and Nathan from Integrated Media. They've been to my home. They've been to Wes's home. They can come out and make your home smarter. They specialize in smart home services right here in the Midlands. integratedmediainc.com.
Halftime show. Terry Ford, glad you're going to be hanging as we go until 3 here on the game. Nothing much here going on. Kind of a slow day. Man. How about all that? Wow. What a last 24 hours. A crazy 24 hours. Looks like South Carolina will have a baseball coach. A name we didn't even talk about. Totally out of left field. Paul Mainieri. It's interesting that, and again, it's not official as of yet, not official. But the word is it will be. Board of Trustees meeting today at 4. We'll see, because there's, South Carolina's got to hire a few coaches for the total athletic program. We'll see if Paul is part of the process of getting a contract approved and stamped, boom, and move on. But the word is this is going to happen. And we'll just start there first. I mean, nobody saw that coming. Wow. And yesterday was funny as I'm sitting up on the old 19th floor doing what we're all doing, hitting Twitter every now and then to see if we're missing any news. And all of a sudden, Baseball America, Teddy Cahill. Sources say South Carolina is, and it's like, whoa. All righty then. Didn't see that. And most of the people I've talked to who are in the know, because, not like I'm in the know, I just know people are in the know, and they were like, didn't see that one. And first of all, obviously, this is a dude. And we talked about hiring a dude, a guy that knows he's been to Omaha so much that, again, Omaha calls him. Hey, you showing up? We're used to having you here. And Paul Mainieri checks those boxes. I mean, the resume's sick. Won national championship, played for a national championship, multiple trips to the College World Series with 9 runs to the Supers. I mean, he went to College World Series, one of 13 coaches to take 2 different programs to the College World Series. Notre Dame and then LSU, obviously. Guy's resume is everything you want for the guy you're going to hire. Everything you want. Just fantastic. But then there is the buts that are, there are 2 that to me are legit. One is, 3 years ago should feel like nothing in the normal world, right? And Mainieri walked away 3 years ago because of health stuff. Now, again, 3 years now, though, in the world of college athletics might as well be 30 years, right? With the NIL and the transfer portal and just the now how empowered the athlete is compared to even 5 years ago. Now the athlete can just leave. See you, bye. Have a good one. So your power hold as a coach has changed dramatically in the last 3 years. So that's the thing, is you now have to come in and bring all of your great gifts as a coach, and Mainieri has gifts as a coach. And the record states it. But how are you going to take those gifts and evolve them into the new world order of college athletics? And Paul Mainieri might have zero problem. We don't know. But we're gonna talk to some people and give us a little insight today, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But that's legitimate question number one. I think it's a question for, and forget the age for a minute. Let's say a coach who was 47 years old, or heck, even 37 years old, had walked away for 3 years and is coming back. It's a legit question. How do you evolve, and how do you take your gifts as a successful coach, and how do you get yourself ramped up to this new world? I think that is just a question you're going to ask about a lot of guys. How are you going to deal with it? So that's number one. I think that is something to bring up. And number two, to be brought up is the health stuff. Maneri walked away from LSU because of health issues. Now, obviously, they're better, or old Paul wouldn't be getting back into the game, right? Sure. But that is, obviously a question. It's a grind. You're playing a lot of games in college baseball. It's a grind. Are you ready health-wise, physically, to jump back in? I think those are the two things you could say that's legit. The age thing, look, there's so many things in this world we're not allowed to joke about anymore. We're still allowed to joke about getting old, right? We can still make fun of us getting old or people getting old or whatever. That seems to be okay. but about a million other things we can't joke about anymore. But we can outwardly, again, in the world we live in where you got to watch every word you say about everything and everyone, it's okay to go, dude's old. Can you do it? It's like anyone. Everything is fluid. Every person is an individual unto themselves. Heck, I know people who are 35 and act like they're 85. And I know people who are about 70 and are sharp as a tack. It's individual to each person. Some people, look, them. Hey, I'll be honest with you. I know people in their mid to late 60s have more energy than my lazy teenage son. I'm not going to go down the road of the age, but I do think, how are you going to, take your gifts as a coach, and how are you going to, evolve them in this new world of college athletics? And two, health-wise, how you doing, Paul? I think those two are, things that, questions that I agree with. You just have to see moving forward. But I think you would ask that question no matter what the age is of the person taking the job. But Maneri's record, man, that is no joke. And if you can check those other two boxes, this guy's won everywhere. And he's won big. Well, except Air Force was kind of a, but then again, the academies are tough to win at some sports. There are limitations there that you don't deal with in other places. But Maneri is one at a high level. And we talked about this when all this started, about getting a dude. Now, this isn't a dude anybody talked about, but if you just go by resume and coaching ability, this is a legit grade A, 100% dude. We'll see where it goes. And then, I had people say, what are the long term of the program? Again, I understand thinking that because, Paul Maneri he'll be 67, I think, when the baseball season starts. Don't know. Depends. Energy-wise, you just have to see. Like, if you got Pete Carroll-type energy, Pete Carroll might be able to coach till he's like 100. Because Pete Carroll moves around like he's 30. It just depends on energy level. And health, obviously, because, Paul Maneri's had health issues in the past. But the long term, look, if this guy stays 5 years and gets you back to Omaha and makes this program, again, looked at as one of the upper level programs in the country, that's not a bad thing in my opinion. Nothing, most folks would take that here. And then if it is let's say it is a 5-year thing, and I'm just making up numbers, the program would be in a lot better spot, perception-wise and health-wise, to go out and then grab another dude. That's just me. That's the way I think about it. I just believe that South Carolina, the goal here is to get this program back to where it used to be. And this is a guy that, again, if his health is good and he can take his success and now translate it to the new world of college athletics in 2024, this guy should do a lot of winning at South Carolina. That's my thought. We also want to hear from you at 803-404-6100. What do you think You can give us a call, Love Chevy phone line. Hit us up on the Firehouse Sub text line. We have a Twitter poll up at 1057. The game is very simple. Paul Maneri, thumbs up, thumbs down, and leave comments. Feel free. So we want to hear your thoughts because obviously this matters a great deal to you because Gamecock baseball is so gigantic in this community. And this is obviously, to me, a crossroads hire of where you have to get and where you have to be. And that's why it's important to get the right guy. And look, nobody's 100% guaranteed to do anything. But to me, you want to hire a guy that with the lowest possible percentage of failure because you got to get back to where you used to get. Like I said, we can talk to you, phone line, text line. Hit us up on our Twitter poll at 1075 The Game. We'll even check it real quick when we get back. It's early. We just started a little while ago, but give your thoughts. It's a halftime show. We are going to be also talking with John Whittle in about 15 minutes from the Big Spur. John's been chasing this story, obviously. Matt Moscona gets some perspective from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Well, Paul Maneri was the head baseball coach very successfully for a long time. Matt Moscona does the afternoon show in Baton Rouge. We're going to talk to Matt about his thoughts on the possible hiring of Paul Maneri as the new head baseball coach of South Carolina. And Mark Etheridge from D1 Baseball, we will get him sometime during the show. He's fluid, so we're going to get him in here when he can jump in and get his thoughts from a national perspective. All that today here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird's here. We'll continue this conversation. Also, maybe play you some sound. Tyler did a nice job of picking up some sound from Paul Maneri over the years, so we'll fire some of that up as well. And we'll continue this conversation. The coaching staff, obviously, that's important as well. We'll get into that next. It's a Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird here till 3 on the Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford. Glad you could be hanging head birds here as we roll up until 3 with the halftime show. Paul Mainieri, the reports are, will be the new head baseball coach of South Carolina. Your thoughts, feel free. 803-404-6100. You can hit us up on the Love Chevy phone line, Firehouse Sub text line, Firehouse Sub text the hour coming up here in just a little bit as well. We have popped the Twitter X poll up at 107.5 The Game. Poll question of the day. The Gamecocks will hire Paul Mainieri as the new baseball coach. Do you approve of the hire? Feel free to comment why or why not below. So far, 160 votes in. We just started this about a half hour ago. 160 votes in. Almost 1,000 folks have viewed it. We appreciate you like always. 86% thumbs up, 14% thumbs down right now. Couple comments. One, absolutely 100%. Other comment, he's the new head coach either way, so the Gamecock fans have no choice but to support the man. Not a ringing endorsement. Be quite honest. No. All right, so not the most ringing endorsement. Anyway, but one, absolutely 100%. And overall so far, with 165 votes, 86%. Quite happy with Paul Mainieri as the new baseball coach at South Carolina. They're getting that buttoned up. Board of Trustees meeting today at 4. We'll see where all that goes. All right, so Paul Mainieri also, Tyler did a really nice job of picking some Paul Mainieri sound out from recently. Here is Paul Mainieri talking about retirement. Basically, talking about he retired a little bit earlier than he expected. He was doing an interview with PBS in Baton Rouge. Cut one, Ed. Here's Paul Mainieri.
Well, I am playing quite a bit of golf, I must admit. You know, I retired a little bit earlier than I expected to, Rob, and I had some health issues that I was dealing with, and I don't regret the decision I made because I felt like I needed to make it physically, and I just needed to take a break. Mm-hmm. But after taking a break, I actually feel pretty good now, and I still feel young. So I don't know if I had a couple chances to go back into coaching this summer, turn those opportunities down. I'm not sure if I'll go back into coaching or if there's something else out there in life that maybe I can do to maybe help influence people again in some capacity, but I just don't know what it is. And in the meantime, what I'm doing is I'm enjoying playing golf, meeting a lot of new people out at the golf course, and spending a lot more time with my children and grandchildren than I got to do when I was active as a coach. So I don't know what I'm sure that the big tiger in the sky's got something planned for me, you know, and I'm just not sure what it's going to be yet. But I just can't emphasize enough just how blessed and privileged, I keep using that word, but I just feel so grateful for the opportunities that I've had in life. I got to work at 4 amazing institutions. I got to coach literally hundreds of amazing young men. I have a beautiful family, great friends, tremendous friends. I've met so many interesting people. Every place that I've been, my life has been enriched. And of course, getting to finish here at LSU was an honor that is indescribable. And I love living in this state. I love the people of this state. And I couldn't ask for anything more, Robin.
You know, again, Mainieri, you hear, I retired a little bit earlier than I expected, had some health issues. Those issues are, taken care of. And even talked about, had sniffed around some gigs, Notre Dame, also Miami. Matter of fact, the word is that, he basically turned down Miami, but he was interested. Miami was obviously interested in Paul Mainieri. So it's not like Mainieri, retired 3 years ago and, took off to Tibet. But now he feels healthy and ready to go. And we'll play you some more Paul Mainieri through the show. Tyler did a really nice job of pulling that. And we're going to get to the coaching staff in a minute because the word is Monty Lee will be staying on staff, which is a thumbs up. Monty Lee's a good baseball man, good recruiter. Obviously can help you in keeping players that are currently on the roster, has been doing some work in the transfer portal as well, and he's kept everything together as the interim head coach. Continuity-wise, it'd be good to keep Monty Lee around. Again, Monty Lee has spent a lot of time in the state of South Carolina, obviously. Man knows the state. There's a lot of positives of keeping Monty Lee. Terry Rooney coming in pitching coach for Maneri at Notre Dame and LSU, recruiting coordinator right now at LSU. LSU's recruiting class for 2025, by the way, is #1 in the country. And I think this past year was like 7th. So Rooney will show up as well. And we'll see who else fills out the staff. But those are two good gets, if that's the way it's going to go. All right, let's get to you. 803-404-6100. Let's jump in. Let's get Seth, who's been holding on. Seth, appreciate you holding. You're on the halftime show. How you doing, man?
Hey, Jerry. How are you today?
Doing great. Doing great.
Good day to be a Gamecock baseball fan.
I tell you, nobody saw this one coming, Seth. Nobody saw it coming.
No, he didn't, and I think Tanner had to hit a home run, and he hit a grand slam.
The man's got a resume, doesn't he? Woo!
Sure does. And the fact he's retaining Monty, what a get. I mean, if you're a Gamecock fan, you couldn't ask for anything better.
I tell you what, a lot of folks are happy today, Seth. A lot of folks are happy. I tell you.
Now, tell me about this guy coming from LSU.
Rooney?
You just briefly spoke about.
Yeah, Rooney. He was the pitching coach for Maneri at Notre Dame and LSU. He went on to be a head coach. I believe it was Central Florida. Then once he left Central Florida, he got back kind of in the coaching game in some ways, and then now he's a recruiting coordinator at LSU. And so he's been around after he left Maneri. He was a head coach, then an assistant. Now he's a recruiting coordinator at LSU, and I think he's going to go back to being the pitching coach once he comes here. That's the word.
Right. Well, I'm sure like you, I watched a lot of baseball the last week and a half.
Yes.
And looking at the teams now that are going to Omaha and comparing them to what we had here in Columbia, the Gamecocks were close, but there is a big difference in the quality of baseball that I've seen in the last week than what we saw in Columbia most of this year.
Yeah, Paul. You know what, Seth? Watching this team this year, I mean, you're saying they're good, they're pretty good, but they're not Omaha good. That's the way I felt watching them all year.
I agree.
So
well, we got the guy now that can do it.
Absolutely, he's been there a lot. He knows his way around Omaha. Hey, Seth, thanks for the call. We appreciate you, man. Give us a ring anytime. Thanks. Again, 86% in our little poll right now is very happy with this hire. Look, that resume speaks for itself. It just does. Like the two things I brought up earlier. You just got to take your coaching style that was so successful, and you got to evolve it into this new world of NIL and, unlimited transfer portal action. I mean, you can bring them in. You might lose them, but you bring them in as well. And then the health issue. If Maneri's ready to go and the issues he had, whether it's migraine, some back stuff, whatever it was, obviously it's been taken care of because he's ready to jump back in. He was almost ready to jump back in last year. But this is a guy that's, again, Wikipedia. It's not tough. You'll see he's one on a high level, And someone I saw someone one of the responses we've gotten is someone said no coach in Omaha is over the age of 55. I mean, okay, legit, that's a fact, but it doesn't mean a guy over the age of 55 can't get to Omaha. It doesn't mean like all of a sudden you're 56 or 57, you've crossed some bridge where, for whatever reason you're not making it. That's just the teams that are there right now. And we've seen guys over the age of 65 get there recently over the years. So that's not like some line in the sand. It's just this year, no coach over the age of 55 is in Omaha. But that is a fact. But I don't think that's a set in stone like new commandment for getting to Omaha. Everything's fluid. Everybody's an individual. I mean, there's some folks at certain ages have a lot more energy than others or a lot sharper than others. I mean, not even just talking about your 60s. Like I said, I watch Pete Carroll. I watch all the energy Pete Carroll has. I watch my teenage son barely get off the couch. Energy. It's fluid. And he used to be a crazy man, Ed. My kid was nuts. I think he shot all of his energy out of his body when he was young, and now he's got no energy left. So Paul Mainieri, new head coach at South Carolina, we believe it's going to happen. Board of Trustees meeting at 4 o'clock today. Other coaches have to be hired in softball and also golf. So there's a lot going on when it comes to hiring coaches at South Carolina. So that's also a thing as well. Again, today at 4 o'clock, the Board of Trustees. John Whittle from the Big Spur. Let's talk to John next, get his thoughts about Paul Mainieri and the situation with the baseball coach situation at South Carolina. That's next. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird here on the game. Eight 803-875-MENS. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Dr. Dan and his staff, look, these aren't like, former baseball players or just some actor trying to get a gig to make a few bucks. No, these are actual real medical professionals at the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. They specialize in helping you out if you have low testosterone. Because the issues you're having could be that simple. Whether it's lack of sleep, lack of drive, your workouts stink, your recovery stinks, you can't remember, where you set your coffee down. Some of those things, it might just be low testosterone because you lose it as you get older. 803-875-MENS. Go in for a free confidential consultation. If they think it could be low T, after you tell them your story and the lab work says it, they'll put you on a program to make you feel like you again, a personalized program for you. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Oh, what we're talking about, obviously, Paul Manieri. Soon to be, we think, the new baseball coach at South Carolina. Let's get a guy that knows a lot more about it than us. John Whittle, Big Spur. All right, my friend. When did this whole thing hit your laptop, so to speak, yesterday? Because it just popped up out of nowhere, man.
Yeah, I had not heard Paul Manieri's name even be connected to South Carolina until I guess it was early yesterday afternoon when I started getting a couple of text messages saying, hey, Paul Manieri. And, yeah, I wasn't able to confirm it until, shortly after, Ted Cahill from Baseball America broke the news. So I knew there was another coach out there, but I didn't know who it was. And this one took me completely off guard.
You were funny. I texted you this out of left field. You said, no, this is out of the Congaree River.
Yeah, I mean, it's the absolute truth. Like, he wandered up off the banks of that river and came right into Founders Park. And I guess I should have thought about it. He was involved in that Miami coaching search last year. He was involved a little bit in Notre Dame in terms of those schools wanting to try to lure him out of retirement, which he went into after the 21 season from LSU. And, him and Ray have always had a great relationship. Ray has great relationships with a lot of baseball coaches, but definitely Paul Manieri. And, I should have thought about it, but I'd be lying to you if I said I did.
You should have, John. No, anyway. Hey, let me ask you this real quick. We're talking to our buddy John Whittle from the Big Spur, talking about Paul Manieri and the most likely idea that he will be the next baseball coach at South Carolina. You said you heard about like that mystery candidate that was floating around. When did you start hearing about that? Was that something that was like almost right away, or did that build a little steam as this week went along?
No, it wasn't right away, and that sounds like a cop-out, too. Like, there's a mystery candidate out there. You don't know who it is. That almost sounds like you're kind of covering your butt, so to speak. But, I didn't know, and I've been very upfront with that on the with the members of the Big Spur. Got wind on Sunday morning, maybe around noon, that there was somebody else out there that Tanner was talking to that hadn't been speculated about, hadn't been posted on any of the hot boards out there or whatever. Like there was no discussion around. So like I spent most of the day Sunday trying to figure out who this guy particularly was, and my brain almost exploded. So I couldn't come up with it. But yeah, like I found out Sunday morning that there was something going on that nobody knew about, that Ray had up his sleeve, and it didn't obviously come out until Teddy Cahill broke the news from Baseball America.
John Whittle with his Big Spur talking Paul Manieri here on the halftime show on the game. John, first of all, the resume is ridiculous. We talked about it and you've talked about it. And everybody said in a perfect world, the replacement here for Mark Kingston will be a guy that knows Omaha. He's been there. He's been there so much they call him the tourism board does. I mean, you want a guy with a resume to get you back to what you used to be as a program. Well, if we're going by resume, it's a hell of a resume, John.
Absolutely. I can't even do the math on the wins and NCAA tournament appearances and all that stuff. Those numbers are too big for me. But he's national champion runner-up. 5-time College World Series, SEC tournament championships. I think it's 6 of those maybe. Regular season championships in the SEC. Oh, yeah, U.S. Collegiate National Team head coach. Oh, yeah, National Coach of the Year. Just so widely respected in college baseball. Like, he gives South Carolina an instant kind of general, for lack of a better word, to take over this program and try to get it back to a little bit of consistency, which was certainly a highlight for him at LSU and Notre Dame before that. I mean, they were consistently really, really good. And, South Carolina, ever since Ray Tanner left the dugout to go into the AD chair, has just been a roller coaster ride. Some years have been really, obviously no Omaha appearances. Some years have been really good going to super regionals, and there have been some really bad seasons there in between as well. So it's just been up and down for Gamecock baseball ever since Ray Tanner left, and Maneri certainly stabilizes it.
John Whittle with us from the Big Spur, obviously talking Paul Maneri, the next head coach at South Carolina. Board of Trustees meeting at 4 today. John, okay, let's go to the butts, because there are a couple of butts. I don't know how big they are, how small they are, but they're butts. First of all, the 3 years ago, and I said I was joking about this earlier, 3 years ago feels like 30 years ago in college athletics, the way this world has changed. And so Paul Maneri, like anyone who has stepped away for a period of time and coming back, you've got to kind of evolve your style or your way of doing things, because it's NIL and ultimate transfers and all these things. What are your thoughts on that butt that has been brought up?
Yeah, and that's a very fair question. And somebody asked me a minute ago on the Big Spur, said, do you think there's a need for a special coach or an admin type to help him adjust to the NIL and the portal? And I said, no, those are called assistant coaches.
Right.
Right, like Monty Lee's been in this a little bit, and Terry Rooney's been in this, and both of those guys are highly respected recruiters, and they know what it takes from an NIL standpoint. They know how to navigate the transfer portal. Like, that may not have been prominent and when Paul Maneri was a coach at LSU, but he's got guys who've been deeply in it. So I don't anticipate either of those things being an issue. Like the assistant coaches do most of the heavy lifting and recruiting anyway, and NIL is not going to be a huge issue for South Carolina going forward. I don't think they're going to be able to raise some money to back the baseball program behind Paul Maneri, and it wasn't a huge issue for South Carolina this past season. They didn't have the same dollars that Tennessee and Texas A&M and maybe a few of these other schools had, but the Gamecocks are going to be in a pretty good spot.
John Whittle with us from the Big Spur, talking about the big story, Paul Maneri becoming the next South Carolina baseball coach here on the Halftime Show. All right, the other one, and we really don't know because, you're not Dr. Whittle and I'm not Dr. Ford, but, Paul Maneri stepped away for health issues. He says he's fine now and he's ready to go. And if he didn't think he was fine, obviously he wouldn't be taking a gig. That's the one, I guess we just have to let it see it play itself out, right, John?
Yeah, I wish I could give you something more tangible on the medical issues, but I just can't, and that's certainly going to be a question that's brought up whenever he has his opening press conference, which is certainly a fair question. But and hopefully we'll get a little bit more insight into that. He's certainly older than most SEC head baseball coaches and college baseball coaches in general at 66, so you wonder how long he's going to be back in the dugout anyway. But it's certainly a fair question, and I guess we'll see what he has to say about it and see how it plays out over the course of his career.
John, the other thing is, people say, well, what about the long term? What about this? What about that? I feel like, if this guy is who he's been and he's going to get you back where you used to be, and let's say he only stays 5 years, but he gets you back to a program that's in the Omaha conversation all the time, you're just in a lot healthier spot to go get the next dude, because now you've readjusted and gotten yourself to where you believe you should rightfully have always been. And then you just move forward from there in a much better spot. Have I lost my mind?
No, you were right on it, at least as far as I'm concerned. South Carolina's had some success with coaches kind of on in their twilight years of their coaching career. Steve Spurrier and Lou Holtz both did great things for this program. Mac Brown's done a pretty solid job up in North Carolina and hung around for a little while. I think it certainly. I certainly think that if Paul Maneri can do even somewhat close to what he did at Notre Dame and at LSU, that makes South Carolina, again, a more attractive place to be. And you've also probably reset some things around here as well in terms of I think you're going to see some facility improvements. I think you're going to see some more investment into the baseball program in general Like it wasn't necessarily like Founders Park is great. There's a lot to love about it. It needs a little bit of a facelift in a lot of areas. Like you don't have the Taj Mahal of the SEC anymore. You've got a good, solid SEC stadium, but so does Kentucky, so does Auburn, so does LSU, so does everybody else. So I think you're going to see some reinvestment into that, which will obviously be attractive when the job is open again. When Maneri decides to retire for good. So we'll see how that goes. I agree with you 1,000% in terms of after when he decides to leave, like it's probably this job should be in a more attractive place than it is right now. Not that it's bad, but it can be better.
Well, man, I know you're a little busy, so I always appreciate you taking some time to yap with us. Thanks a lot. We'll bug you again. We always do.
That sounds great. I always enjoy talking with you, Terry.
All right, John. Thanks, man. All right, John Whittle, our buddy from the Big Spur, giving us his thoughts on Paul Maneri, the soon-to-be new baseball coach at South Carolina. We'll come back, Firehouse Sub Text of the Hour. We got a bunch of them. That's coming up next here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird steering the ship up until 3 on the game. All right, time to jump in with our Firehouse subtext of the hour. Also, we'll check the Twitter. What am I doing? What am I doing, Ed Bird? You walk in, you hear music, you figure it's time for you to talk. All right, Firehouse subtext here. By the way, Mark Etheridge from D1 Baseball coming up top of the hour, 1 o'clock. Get the national point of view of Paul Maneri becoming the next baseball coach at South Carolina. Obviously, we're getting your local point of view. Our Firehouse subtext the hour, 803-404-6100. Not crazy about the age, but has been a great baseball coach and is way better than what we've had. He's a proven winner. I'm all for the hire. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I said it in the open of the show, and if I didn't, it's on me. I like the hire. I do. Now, yeah, obviously, there's some things like the health stuff because you just don't know. But I like the hire. And yes, it's 2023. It's a different world. But I think John Whittle hit it perfect. That's why you have assistant coaches. Terry Rooney, Monty Lee have been in the NIL transfer portal game the whole time. They know what's up. Paul Maneri is a high-level baseball coach, and he'll have people with him that can help him navigate this world that he wasn't a coach in when he left 3 years ago. You always have to see what happens, right? I mean, you can have guys around you that can tell you what's up, but you have to listen to them. But Paul Maneri will have assistant coaches who know the lay of the land. And if Paul's listening and he's open to it and he's, saying, guys, help me get through this. Interesting. Just watching the game TV, watching the microphone fly right in front of the camera. Anyway, fix that. So I don't think that's as much of a thing because he's going to have a cocoon of support for that. But the health is the big question mark. We don't know. But I like the hire. I mean, look, like I said to John, yes, Paul Maneri will be 67 years old at the start of the season. I get it. I get people who are concerned about that. Totally understand. But if this guy stays 5 years and gets this program back to where it used to be, competing to go to Omaha, and puts this program on that level again, it's in a much better place moving forward when Paul Maneri leaves than it is right now. And to me, that's huge. That would be huge. And then you go to the next step of who the next guy is. But that next guy, that other dude that might be looking at South Carolina like, yeah, it used to be great, but it's not what it was before. If it gets back to being where it was before, then others are on a high level. Other dudes would be more than willing to take on the job. So I like the hire. I get the concerns, some of them, but you're bringing a guy with this resume who can get you where you want to be again because he's taken 2 other schools there. That's a nice get. However, we said this yesterday. These searches, sometimes they look smooth and, they're just, plan A works all the way down the road, right? But a lot of times it's, you start off with an idea, and then you riff off to another idea, then all of a sudden you're back over to some other idea, then you circle back to an idea that you didn't think about, but you're going to reinvestigate. Sometimes these things can come off clunky. Sometimes, you got that cloak and dagger stuff of the mystery candidate that you're working on that nobody knows about while you're doing your due diligence with other candidates, and all of a sudden pop. This is that one. Nobody saw it coming. Until Teddy Cahill popped Baseball America yesterday afternoon, a little bit before 4, with the sources, multiple sources. South Carolina very interested in Paul Maneri as their next baseball coach. However you get to this point, if it works, everybody's smart. Now, you might find out more later and go, and maybe you'll never find out. But what matters is the results. We talk about Lamont Paris. You know, national basketball writers were crushing the search process. There were question marks. What's South Carolina doing? There's that perception. Lamont Paris, what was he, 12th on your list? Well, all that no one talks about right now because Lamont Paris could have been National Coach of the Year last season. It's about the results. If Paul Mainieri comes in here and gets South Carolina back to being one of the best programs in America, that's what matters. It really, that's just it. Simply. That's the deal. So we'll see where it goes from here. Coaching staff-wise, keeping Monty Lee, I think, is a big deal just because, you know, he knows the state. He's a really good recruiter. He's a good lieutenant, good baseball man, has kept everything together as the interim head coach. And now you can go about the business of keeping the players you want to keep on this roster so they don't hit the portal and start mining the portal yourself for upgrades. And also Terry Rooney, excellent assistant coach. A pitching coach, a recruiting coordinator. I mean, that's a big thumbs up as well. So we'll get back into a top of the hour. Mark Etheridge, D1 Baseball, next on the Halftime Show. Not today. We are preempting football for baseball. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. We appreciate you if you're in Columbia or Florence or Myrtle Beach listening. Obviously, our gigantic news today, Paul Mainieri will be the new baseball coach at South Carolina. Board of Trustees meeting today at 4 p.m. There's multiple coaches, though, here, whether it's golf, softball, so we'll see how the combination of the three, which contracts are getting done and finalized, but all sources say Paul Mainieri will be the new baseball coach at South Carolina. We talked to John Whittle, who covers the Gamecocks for the Big Spur here about a half hour ago. Now let's get a national perspective. Mark Etheridge, D1 Baseball. Mark, I know you're a busy man these days, so I appreciate you, but so on a scale of 1 to 10, how wowed were you by Paul Mainieri's name coming up as the next head coach at South Carolina?
Yeah, I did not expect that at all. I really didn't. I mean, give it a 10. That was, I really thought it would be one of the ACC coaches, either Tom Walter or Chris Pollard. So, and when, I heard something yesterday morning that, that Paul Mainieri was a candidate, I'm thinking, no way. That's just, how you hear stuff sometimes, and you kind of look at it through a jaded lens. And then the next thing I know, Kendall Rogers is putting something out there about it, and it's like, so this is really happening. And if you think about it, I don't know how much longer Ray's going to stay. Right? He's at that age where he can kind of choose choose what he wants to do. He's accomplished so much. I think he wanted to get someone he's comfortable with, and certainly that he and Paul go back. They competed against each other for years. Somebody he's, that he can feel comfortable with, and certainly Paul Mainieri is a coach that he's presided over a team that had the final dog pile. There's not many of those guys out there, and he's one of them. So he certainly understands what a championship team looks like. He understands how to build a staff. He understands how to recruit at this level. The question would be, since he left, it's been 3 years or so, it's probably been the biggest change in college baseball that in any 3-year period. It's just everything is different now with the transfer portal, not having to sit out, NIL, realignment, the consolidation of the power into the top programs. It's just a different sport, and certainly he's kept up and he understands all this, but it is different, and that's what's going to be interesting for him as he transitions from a role where it was more about recruiting and development. Well, those things are still important, but now it's more about, or at least as much, about acquisition and retention, and that is something that just remains to be seen whether he'll excel with that or not.
Mark Etheridge with us hanging out from D1 Baseball, talking Paul Mainieri, next baseball coach at South Carolina, here on the halftime show in The Game. So I'll ask you this, Mark. So how much does that make the importance of the right staff? I know the word is Terry Rooney will come back with him, his longtime right-hand man as a pitching coach at Notre Dame and LSU. Monty Lee, who was on the coaching staff here, was the interim coach. Word is he'll stay as well. How important is it to build a staff of folks who know how to navigate these waters since Mainieri's been out for 3 years?
Yeah, that's. I think it's vital. It would be vital for any coach, but it's certainly vital for one who's who hasn't been making those decisions. And certainly with Terry Rooney's role, it was more like a general manager kind of guy for that helped with the roster and all that. So that's he certainly has that skill set. He's at LSU. They do it as well as anyone. So he understands what it takes. And then you get if Monty is remains on staff, and you have continuity, a very respected guy, good hitting coach, a lot of recruiting connections, all of those different things. That's a good staff. I mean, already, and they would have another person to add. So from that, it's I would be really hopeful if I'm a South Carolina fan, because you got a guy with a proven track record. You got a staff that understands how to what it takes. The question I would have is just how committed is South Carolina? Because in this world, to compete at the top of the conference, you've got to have NIL You've got to do things for those athletes to compete with those that are doing it. So that'll be, we'll see how that transpires, because you look at the teams that are still playing, and they're all active in this NIL game. So, it doesn't take someone who's a brain surgeon to figure out what you need to do.
Mark Etheridge with us from D1 Baseball, talking Paul Maneri, and who will be, according to many sources, the next baseball coach at South Carolina here on the Halftime Show. You brought up something interesting, Mark, and that's commitment. How committed South Carolina will be. Just from the people you talk to, and because you know tons of people in the sport, what's the perception of how committed is South Carolina in that NIL space, or to get to that space you need to get to compete in the SEC in 2024?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not at the top tier. And, that would be the LSUs, the A&Ms, the Arkansas, the Tennessee, at times the Mississippi schools are there. Florida, at times is there, depending on the year. And then there's a drop-off. And certainly Vandy's got some advantages as well. But I do think that South Carolina is a step behind those. And in order to get – you don't have to play in that space. You just have a very low margin for error if you don't. Okay, so in order to give yourself the best opportunity, you got to play ball, and that takes money. It takes commitment. It takes a lot of times taking money away from other sports to prioritize baseball, and that's a problem not just for South Carolina, but the Alabamas and Auburns and other places that are football crazed have the same issue. So I do think that when you have an AD who's a baseball savvy guy, that can certainly give some dividends where other places may not have that. But I do think if you're going to, be this perennial College World Series team that South Carolina would like to be, that's an area that is going to have to improve.
Mark Etheridge hanging out with us, D1 Baseball, here on the Halftime Show in the Game. Mark, we talk about Ray Tanner, and obviously a Hall of Fame iconic baseball coach, now the athletic director. How important was this for Ray Tanner to get it right this time? I mean, how was this program at that crossroads where who you used to be is getting farther in the rearview mirror, and it's time to course correct, because you don't want to get where the kids that are growing up had no idea that you were once one of the best programs in America.
Yeah, I understand the point, and I do think that South Carolina has not been where they wanted to be, and since Tanner was there, honestly. I mean, Kingston had a few good years, and so did Chad, but the consistency hasn't been there, and and that's what Ray was. Man, he was, as a coach, he was very consistent. They were good every year, and some years they were better than good. I do think that I think he's at the point now where he's accomplished so much, and his time as AD has been, it's had some ups and downs, right? So this is a chance to go out his way. If this is what, if this is the way he's going to end his AD career, I mean, he's certainly hoping this is the last head baseball coach he hires, and if so, then he's going to get someone he's comfortable with, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Not that he wasn't comfortable with Kingston, but I do think that there's I guess more comfort, we'll call it, with what he's, with the relationship with Paul. And Paul has won it. He's won a national championship. I mean, you're not questioning his on the field program building. I think that the part that's going to be interesting, and that goes to the commitment, right? Of how are you able to retain? Because you're not really building programs as much anymore as you're building teams from year to year, because there's just so much volatility. And to do that, you need that commitment, and you need that because you don't have roster commitment. You need administrative and program commitment in order to be successful. So, I mean, it's a good question. I don't really have a great answer for you, but I do think that with the way that the SEC is trending, where it's so, the top, you want to say the top 20 programs right now, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, are half of them in the SEC. I mean, that gives you no margin for error. So it's just kind of one of these things where if you don't get it right, it's going to be pretty obvious because the other programs are so good that you're not going to have a chance, man. It's so cutthroat.
Hey, Mark, the thing that's been brought up with Maneri also that people kind of, it's question mark, but concern, whatever, obviously stepping away when he did with the health issues 3 years ago. He says he's fine now, and obviously he feels fine or he wouldn't be jumping back into coaching. And people will bring up his age. He's 60. He'll be 67 when the first pitch is thrown. Your thoughts on those two topics that have been brought up?
Yeah, well, certainly, at the end of his career, he was having at the end of his LSU time, he was having, back issues, and it was really hard for him to keep up the pace that it takes, as an SEC head coach. And that's something that, it's an obvious question, right? And it'll be something he'll have to speak to repeatedly, I imagine. Because as we age, I get this. I'm not as young as I once was. It's harder to keep up that pace, and certainly as an SEC head coach, that pace is unparalleled, in this sport anyway. So, you hope that by wisdom and you hope that by experience that you can take, some direct lines and not spend as much time on things that don't matter as we did earlier in our lives, and you hope that that's the path that he can take. And then also to surround yourself with people to do some of those things that are necessary to keep up. But it's a fair question, and I do think that if he's healthy, which all indications are he's raring to go, right? He had the itch and he's going to scratch it. So there'll be some extra motivation to kind of prove that anytime somebody tells you can't do something, these are competitive men. They're going to make a point to demonstrate that. So I would expect that to be one of the lesser concerns of the Maneri team here in South Carolina.
All right, we never truly know until after everything's over with, but just with the hiring of Paul Maneri, what is the Mark Etheridge D1 baseball grade on this hire today, sir?
It's probably a B. I don't know who else you were going to get. I mentioned Pollard and Walter, and they would have been really good hires because they're at the top of the sport right now. But I didn't know who else would be out there, and to get someone who's been at the top of the sport is, that's not bad, right? He understands what the blueprint looks like. So I do think that, there's obviously concerns about age. There's obviously concerns about being out of the game for a little bit, but I think those are manageable for reasons we've already discussed. And I'm optimistic that this is going to work. So, and from a personal side of things, having Paul Maneri back in the game is great, right? Because he's very articulate. He's open. He's going to talk about things that maybe some coaches don't talk about. And as in the media perspective, and even as a fan, you want to hear that stuff, right? So sure. I think all those things are positive.
Fantastic. Mark Etheridge, I know you're a busy man. I appreciate your time, sir, and obviously we'll bug you again down. Maybe we'll actually talk some college baseball in Omaha next time. Thank you, man.
Yeah, sounds good.
Appreciate you. You too. We'll see you now. That's Paul. That's our buddy Mark Etheridge from D1 Baseball. Come back. We'll hear some more from Paul Maneri. Tyler's dug up some recent sound from Paul Maneri. We're going to hear going back a little bit, a couple years from Paul Maneri, right a little bit after right around when he retired. That's coming up. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird. It's not football today. It's obviously baseball. With the expected hiring of Paul Maneri as the new baseball coach at South Carolina. That's coming up right here on A Game. All right, coming up at 1:30, Matt Moscona from ESPN in Baton Rouge, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Give us a little more insight on Paul Mainieri and his time at LSU and when Mainieri stepped away with the health issues and things of that nature, and just get some thoughts on Paul Mainieri, the coach, the man, all that stuff. That's coming up with Matt at the bottom of the hour. Speaking of Paul Mainieri, if you haven't heard for some reason, what we expect to be the new baseball coach at South Carolina Board of Trustees meeting today at 4. Tyler dug up some Paul Mainieri from a couple years ago. Here's Paul Mainieri talking about his coaching style. He calls it fatherly, his fatherly coaching style. Let's get cut to, Ed Bird, Paul Mainieri on his coaching style.
Well, again, it was the lessons that I learned at a young age about what coaching was all about, particularly from my father. But the players are everything. See, when I told my dad that I wanted to be a coach, he said to me very clearly, don't go into coaching for the prestige. Don't go into coaching because you think you're going to make money. Don't go into coaching because just because you love sports. Do it because you feel that you can help these young men become successful in life and teach them life lessons. So that was always my focus, to work individually with the players, to try to help guide each of them individually. But then as collectively as a group, I love the idea of, at the beginning of the year, it was like you were handed a pile of clay and it was your job to mold it into something beautiful. And that was to develop a team that was capable of competing for championships. And you know, I make no apologies, Robin, for wanting to try to be successful, because by being successful, following the rules, using good sportsmanship, you know, not looking for shortcuts, but by being successful, it gave me credibility with the players so that I could teach them life lessons that were good, that would guide them through the rest of their life. And fortunately, we had enough success in our career that we got to decide to retire on our own when we thought the time was right. And I miss it, you know, because I miss that interaction with the players. But, you know, I just feel very grateful and very blessed that I got to do it for as long as I did.
So there's Paul Mainieri talking about his coaching style, about, you know, getting that team with the clay and molding it, and, you know, that kind of analogy. And, you know, it is a different world now. And, you know, the old school screaming and yelling, and you're Fidel Castro, and you're the dictator, and you control everything, and you control these kids' lives. And not that Paul Mainieri was doing that, because from what I've heard, he wasn't that kind of a coach. But it's just the idea that now players can just transfer and leave. You know, that power shift, whether you were you know, hard edge guy, or if you even were a player's coach. 3 years is a long time in this business now, where, you know, the players, they have the power to peace out on you. And sometimes, you know, you have no control. Like we talk about, you know, Cliff Godwin at East Carolina. There's a guy who players love him, program's real successful, but he's losing vital players in the portal because of NIL, and he can't do anything about that. So it's just a different world now that you're navigating. I mean, the hope is you keep Ethan Petrie. Now that, you know, the dust is settling here, and Paul Mainieri's coming in with a fabulous resume. Monty Lee, it feels like, is going to stay on. The continuity with this current crop of players. Bringing in a Terry Rooney, excellent recruiter, good coach. You're going to have to add another. Obviously, a lot of folks are saying this is a perfect opportunity to get Landon Powell in here and get him into the SEC as an assistant. Whatever the makeup of all this, hopefully that's going to be enough to make an Ethan Petrie stay, or some of the other key players that you don't want to leave your program. But it is a different world in how you relate to players. It is now. All of it has shifted, and you've got to be able to evolve and shift with it. So, all right, we are doing our Twitter poll. It's very easy. Are you down with the Paul Mainieri hiring or not? Very simple. Looking at our Twitter poll right now, we got 367 votes. Over 2,000 folks have viewed it. Thank you very much. Still rolling the same way. 86% thumbs up, 14% thumbs down. Couple of more comments. I believe this would have been a great hire 10 years ago. I don't think it's a great hire now, being his age and being out of the game a few years due to health. better have some very aggressive assistance for the NIL. I suspect we'll find out this was about the third pick. Absolutely great hire. We'll have one of the most elite recruiting development staffs in the country with Monty Lee and Terry Rooney doing most of the footwork. As it Paul's ties, he's going to win fast and big. Excited for next season. Go Cucks. Another one, happy, proven winner. You should be able to get the program back to where it needs to be. Flip side, absolutely not. He's 66, coming off years of retirement, entering into a very different and new NIL and overall baseball landscape. I'll pull for him and hope I'm wrong, but I'm shocked by this is the direction Ray took on the hire. 86% are happy, 14% are not. We just want to get you a good balance of different thoughts on the hire of Paul Mainieri. Again, Board of Trustees meeting at 4 o'clock, and we'll see where all that goes. But you have to remember, you have two other coaches that are being hired as well, a new softball coach and also, a new golf coach. So there's other hires going on, not just for a baseball coach. We'll see what happens at the Board of Trustees meeting later today at 4 o'clock. Again, I like it. I get the concern with, 3 years is a long time in this world of being out of the game. Yes, 67 years old to start the season. And yes, there's, the health issues that drove Mainieri out of the head coaching job at LSU. Out of the three in concern, I would rank probably the health thing to me would be one, because you just don't know. Obviously, he's healthy, ready to go, or he wouldn't be doing this. But still, there were health issues that made him leave the job he didn't want to leave. So if we're looking at concerns, that would be my top one. The evolving to the new world is another one. But like, John Whittle talked about, and we brought it up earlier, if you have Monty Lee and Terry Rooney, these are guys that are fully well-versed on this new world, and they can help you out as you learn it and evolve with it. Number three, I think, is the age. The world's just it's just different now. When I was younger, if somebody in their mid-60s is different than someone now. It's just, we joke, 67's a new 57, but it is different now because of all these advances in technology and science and medicine. Getting older isn't what it was when we were younger. So I put that one third. Like, I understand the concerns. I do. But for me, I think this is a really good hire. But it's all about results, right? Mm-hmm. This is a guy that knows how to get to Omaha. He's got to Omaha with multiple programs. When he shows up, he gets out of the car holding hands with success. These concerns, yes, I get you. I get them. I get you. But I think this is a guy that if the health holds up, he can get South Carolina back to where they used to be. All right, we'll come back. Mac Moscolo from ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge is next to give us the Louisiana angle on the new head coach from LSU recently. Our buddy, we're going to call him Paul, our buddy Paul. That's next here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird here on the game. What you're talking about, I'm talking about, Ed Bird's talking about, the dude outside the window here is talking about, is South Carolina set to hire Paul Manieri as the head baseball coach. Obviously, Paul, very successful in his time at LSU, so we figure, what the heck, let's go grab somebody from Baton Rouge who knows what's up with Paul Manieri, and we couldn't find anybody in Baton Rouge better to talk to than Matt Moscona from ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge. It's at Matt Moscona on the Twitters. Matt, we appreciate you, man. I know you got a show to do here at 3 o'clock, so thanks a lot.
Hey, Terry, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, so when you heard that Paul was coming out of retirement to take the South Carolina job, what was the first thing that ran through your mind?
Honestly, not terribly surprised that he would coach again. A little surprised that South Carolina was the destination. Coach spent 15 years in Baton Rouge, and since his retirement 3 years ago, he's stayed here, and he's still very present in the LSU and Baton Rouge communities. He's worked in sort of an emeritus fundraising role around LSU, so I see him all the time. See him out with his wife Karen at restaurants and at plenty of different charity events. So, I think by evidence of the fact that the last 2 years he's been in conversations for the Miami job and the Notre Dame job, tells you the story that he was interested very much in coaching again. So I'm not surprised that he's coaching again. Maybe a little surprised that it's in the SEC at South Carolina, because I think he's going to have a pretty big challenge on his hands there. But the fire still burns in him, man, and I'm happy for him.
Matt Moscona with us, hanging out from 104.5 ESPN in Baton Rouge, hosting after further review here in a couple hours in Baton Rouge. Matt, so if someone doesn't, they know the record, they see the record of what that Paul did, 2 trips to the College World Series, 2 different programs, very successful. Obviously, LSU winning a national championship, playing for one, all of the accolades and the wins. But tell us about Paul the man, real quick, if someone doesn't really know about who he is as a person.
You'll have a hard time finding anybody to say anything negative about Paul Manieri, the person. He is, and I've covered LSU since 2007, which was Paul's first season in Baton Rouge. So I covered all 15 of his teams. And in all the years across all the sports that I've covered LSU, he might be my favorite coach that I've covered. He is, from a media perspective, he is both accessible and candid and kind and generous. From a community standpoint, I mean, maybe I could best illustrate this with a story. Every year there's a charity in town that they ask me to MC their event, and Coach Manieri has always been the guest of honor. He and his wife Karen would go to a lot of this where the guest of honor show up late, leaves early, slide in, shake hands, say a little something, and then exit stage left. Coach would always be the first one there and the last one to leave. And he stays and talks to everyone and shakes every hand and signs every autograph and takes every picture and is as genuine a person as you'd ever want to meet. So the Paul Manieri, the man, the person, you're getting in just an A-plus human being that you're going to be pressed to find anybody to say an unkind word about Paul.
Matt Moscona hanging out with us from 104.5 ESPN in Baton Rouge, talking about Paul Manieri, who will become the baseball coach of South Carolina. Halftime show with Terry Ford on the Game. All right. So, Matt, what has made him so successful? Ian, you covered the entire tenure of Paul Manieri at LSU. What do you think is the top thing that made him such a good baseball coach to achieve all that he has achieved?
Well, he's a great baseball mind to begin with. He's the son of a coach. His dad, Demi Manieri, is a Hall of Fame coach from his time at Miami-Dade, and so it's in his blood. And when you look at how he'll construct a roster and manage a game, he's won in many different ways. Whenever Coach got to Baton Rouge, you still had bats where the ball would fly, and he built big power hitting teams. And in 2011, when they deadened the bats and lowered the seams on the ball, he started building teams that were just elite defensive teams that leaned on pitching and defense and, could play station-to-station baseball offensively. So he's won in a lot of different ways. And I think when he goes to South Carolina, he'll find the best combination with the roster he has and how he builds the roster to win with the talent he's got, because that's what he does, and it's the way he's always approached it. The challenge near the end of his time in Baton Rouge, you will hear people say, was recruiting, but that's why he had Nolan Cain on staff, who was a great recruiter. And I think the hire of Terry Rooney is very significant, because Terry Rooney is a masterful recruiter and a good pitching coach as well. So I think maybe one of the reasons he's had so much success is he knows how to win with the talent he has. He knows how to build a staff to supplement for I don't want to say deficiencies, but for the places where maybe he isn't strong, he'll supplement with people who are. And I mean, I think in any sport, that's probably the hallmark of a great coach, and it's a reason he's been Omaha 6 times, won a national title, was a national runner-up, and was in every Hall of Fame.
Matt, some of the concerns that have popped up, obviously stepping away for 3 years, it might as well be 30 years in the world of college athletics now with NIL and transfer portals and things of that nature. And obviously you have to evolve and change for that. Give us your thoughts on him coming back after a 3-year layoff when we've seen the world just blow up in college athletics.
I mean, I think that's valid. I mean, and I don't think it's just for Paul. I think it would be for anybody who's trying to coach in this day and age in college baseball, because it is different with the transfer portal. I mean, we're seeing it today. I mean, this LSU team, as of now, has 9, maybe going on 10 guys in the transfer portal. So you're going to have massive roster turnover year to year. But that's why I think I'm curious to see how much buy-in is there in South Carolina. And the reason I think that's a tough job is that's a program where, I mean, you'll fire a coach. And the expectation is, we saw Ray Tanner win back-to-back national titles, a dozen years ago, and to get back to that level. And it is an age in college baseball where you've got such an NIL presence. Is Carolina willing to commit that level that Tennessee and Texas A&M and other programs have? And if they are, coach is plenty good enough to get a team to and win a College World Series. I still believe that. But how many resources will he have around that South Carolina program? That's a question, Terry, I think you'd be better to answer than me. You can have lofty expectations, but are you going to support those expectations with resources? I mean, I kind of look in football at like Nebraska. Nebraska had a great history, and the world changed, and the advantages they had at one time are no longer advantages, and they still see themselves as something they're not anymore. So are you willing to commit the resources to get back there? And that's I think, going to be the big question for Ray Tanner and for this whole South Carolina athletic department.
Matt, last thing for you. The other two things that come up is, Paul Mainieri will be 67 years old when a pitch is thrown for the first time next season. And also, again, he walked away because of health concerns. I mean, the health concerns you'll never know till the guy actually starts going again. But do you think at that age that's something anyone should be concerned about? Or is this a guy that's just got boundless energy and that the age is just a number?
So just to be clear, the health concern, Paul dealt with like a really intensely painful neck injury, and you'd see him in the dugout, and a lot of times people would say, "Man, does he have a tick?" And it was just discomfort that he dealt with for a long time with the neck. So that was part of it. But as far as his overall health, there's no issues that I know of. And I'll tell you this, and I don't mean to be like, I'm not trying to wax poetic or be romantic here, but when you guys will hear it, whenever Paul Mainieri talks about baseball on opening day, it's like a childhood energy. And as long as he coached and as long as I covered him, every opening day was the same thing. And he still had that love for the game. And that's why I'm not surprised he's coaching again, because I don't think that fire ever extinguishes. And as long as he feels like he can be effective, I think he'll continue to coach. I think he feels like he still can be. So I don't know necessarily that the health concern is an issue. My question would be, for how long? Does Paul Mainieri give South Carolina a 5-year run where he leaves the program in better standing that found to make it a more desirable job for whoever's next? He's the approacher. Maybe he wants to coach another 10 years. I don't know. But, man, when you look at a resume like his, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that Ray Tanner could have hired with a better, more appealing resume than Paul Mainieri's.
Matt, it took me 5 minutes to read it. on the air today.
It's long and distinguished, yeah.
Absolutely. The host of After Further Review, 3 to 6, on 104.5 ESPN in Baton Rouge, Matt Moscona, at Matt Moscona on Twitter. Man, I know you got all sorts of stuff going on there. You do 50 different jobs, so I appreciate you and your time, my friend.
It's my pleasure. Y'all have a great day.
You too, Matt. Thanks, man. All right, we will get back in here. Firehouse Sub, text of the hour, 803-404-6100. We'll hit more than one. We have many of them. And we'll get to it, and also the Twitter X poll on the hiring of Paul Maneri. It's all coming up on the halftime show. Terry Ford and Ed Bird hanging here till 3 on the game. Time to get the Firehouse Sub Texases of the hour. We have a bunch at 803-404-6100. A plus for South Carolina. You don't have to rebuild a program from the ground up. Success is already here, and a great coach can turn it around very quickly. Michael says, imagine keeping our good players and reloading our pitching staff. We could be good next year. Again, I mean, obviously, you'd love to keep Ethan Petrie and some of the other players you have on this team. Petrie, though, is the big keep. And the fact he hasn't even gone in the portal, I think that tells you something. Now, obviously, Paul Mainieri will have to sit and talk with his players. I don't know if re-recruit is the right word, but, you know, you have to give them to want to stay. So far, most of the important pieces, really all the important pieces on this team have not yet jumped into the portal at all. Another text. This is not Michael, this is Mike. Problem for me is if you're telling me we're getting a new coach coming out of retirement who has won a title, then give me Ray Tanner. They're the same age, and Ray has more titles and won his titles after the LSU coach. This is an interesting take. Hey, you know, you want to give me a coach around that age coming out of retirement, give me Tanner. Difference is Ray really has no desire to come out of retirement. But Paul Mainieri does. And does Mainieri have Ray's resume? No, but it's a hell of a resume. It really is. And I said this earlier, I like it because this is a guy that's won. He's won everywhere, and he's won on the highest of level. Yes, I get the concerns. And I'm not going to act like they aren't concerns. But at the end of the day, and there's more to hear, and maybe we'll hear it all. We'll hear some things we'll never know. But it feels like the Mainieri was the quote-unquote mystery candidate in this thing that some folks have been talking about. And look, no offense to Tom Walter or Chris Pollard, Cliff Godwin. Mainieri's got a better resume. It's just the age. Yes, I understand the concern on the age. I understand the concern on the reason Paul Mainieri walked away was the health thing. And we just heard a few minutes ago, Matt Moscona from 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge giving us the lowdown. It was a neck thing, a neck back kind of thing that was bothering him. Obviously, Mainieri's healthy, or he wouldn't be doing this. But yeah, so yeah, the health thing, you'd be concerned. The new world, I think, with Amani Lee and a Terry Rooney, if that's who is going to be on the staff, helps get Paul Mainieri, you know, in the loop, so to speak, on the world of the NIL and the unlimited transfer portal and things of that nature. So I think that's going to be a huge help. And you have one more person added to the staff. We'll see who that is. But I think that's something that can be handled with the staff around him. But yes, health's the thing. And do you have as much energy at 67 as you did at 47 or 37 or 57? I'm guessing no. I mean, geez, I don't feel as good as I did 10 days ago. But, yeah, we talked to Matt, and Matt doesn't think that's a thing. And he was around Mainieri his entire tenure at LSU. So, yeah, there are things that you got the eyebrow up on, but when you see this resume and know what this guy can do, I believe if the health is okay, I think Paul Mainieri will do really good work at South Carolina. We'll see where the result is at the end, but I feel like it's a good hire. And there are folks who think that, you know, Ray struck out everywhere else and went to Paul Mainieri. What we've heard is that's not the case. That Mainieri was in the mix as the quote-unquote mystery candidate for a bit in this past week. It wasn't like Ray went, "Oh my God, I can't get anybody. Let me go to my phone. Let me look at my my Rolodex of people. Oh, call Mainieri. What the heck? You almost took the Miami job last year. Maybe he'll help me out. We're friends." I don't think that is what went down here. I don't. Now, at what point did Mainieri become the leading candidate and the guy that was offered the job? We'll probably never know. Was there someone ahead of Mainieri and that didn't work out, so Paul was next in line? Who knows? No idea. But this is where it ends with a guy with an excellent resume who has been to the College World Series with two different programs, has been to the Supers a ton, has been to Omaha a bunch, has been National Coach of the Year, SEC Coach of the Year. I mean, just tons of success. Tons of success. You couldn't find a better ledger with career achievements of guys who were available in some way, shape, or form than Paul Maneri. So we'll see. Also, our Twitter poll is rolling still, Twitter X. Very easy, Paul Maneri. You down with it? You're not down with it? We're still sitting at 86% thumbs up, 14% thumbs down. We've got over 400 votes so far, like 426 votes. You still have plenty of time, by the way. Almost 22 hours still to vote. Over 2,600 views. Thank you very much. And we have comments because we want you to leave a comment. Some comments. Again, absolutely 100% love it. Home run hire. He seemingly checks all the boxes Carolina fans wanted. Put together a great staff and watch out. I have a feeling this will end like Coach Superior, basically talking about Spurrier. Great hire. Love the hire as long as Monty stays. No one would have complained about age if we'd have hired Dave Van Horn. Interesting. Because, again, Van Horn's still active. And also, Maneri's hire will be better than Van Horn's. Yeah, interesting. All right, so thank you very much for jumping in. What's trending at 2? Coming up next on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford. Ed Bird's here also, here on The Game. Oh, halftime show. Terry Ford Ed Bird. How can you not dig the Ramones? Jeez. I said this on the air before. Like they said, when my kids were younger, they're yapping in the car. There was a rule. Ramones came on. Shush. Silence. It's the Ramones. My youngest is now like 17, and he digs R&B and hip hop. That's his thing. One day, Ramones were on. He's like, Dad, you really think this is any good? Shush, the Ramones are on. And now you're grounded. Till you're 30, disrespect the Ramones. All right, we're running till 3 here on the game right now. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We will obviously, the first couple hours of this show have been total Paul Maneri, new head coach at South Carolina, new baseball coach. We'll get back to that, obviously, because it's a gigantic story here in Columbia, in the Midlands, in the state. And we'll get you another Paul Maneri cut or two, another Paul Maneri cut we'll get. We got one left we want to play for you. But let's hit a couple other stories in the sports world as well. First of all, we'll focus on South Carolina football. The SEC came out with the rest of the schedule time-wise, or at least in the neighborhood of time-wise. Some of these you already heard. Let's go through the South Carolina schedule now after the SEC has popped some more start times. Obviously, Old Dominion, the opener, 4:15. Second game, Kentucky, 3:30. LSU in week 3, a noon kick. Akron will be a night game. Ole Miss will be flex. So who knows where that'll end up. It'll be a flex game. Alabama, noon kick. Oklahoma, early. Does that mean noon? Does that mean 9 a.m.? I don't know. But it'll be early. Texas A&M, a night game. Vanderbilt will be an afternoon tilt. Missouri also an afternoon game. Wofford a 4 p.m. Start. Clemson to be announced. So right now you truly know of, let's see, 1 noon kickoff, 2 noon kickoffs, a 3:30 and a 4:15, a couple other afternoon kicks, a TBA, and like I said, 3 night games. So that kind of, it's all over the place. And the one flex, the Ole Miss game will be a flex. So that just came out, SEC, just here a few minutes ago with the schedule up to date at this moment. And look, I like this idea better. Look, in a perfect world, it's like the NFL. You get everything. There's a schedule release, boom, you knew start times. I know it's not that easy in the college football world. It should be easier than they try to act like it is, but this is good. At least you get an idea. And you can plan your life. And we can plan our lives here at the game. So that's the latest schedule-wise coming from the SEC. Another interesting football note, this comes from the NFL. All right, Aaron Rodgers. Now, right now, the Jets are having mandatory minicamp. And you heard the word mandatory. It means you got to be there. Well, I guess the rules with the Jets is you got to be there unless you're Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was not attending day 1 of the Jets' mandatory minicamp. Unexcused absence. There will be a fine because of the CBA, collective bargaining agreement between the union and the teams. You get fined if you don't show up for mandatory minicamp. Well, Aaron Rodgers not there. According to Robert Saleh, the head coach, Rodgers opted instead to attend an event that is, quote, very important to him. Now, what is that event? We don't know. Could it be some charitable cause that's near and dear to his heart? Could it be something that is massively emotional, it's family related? Or is he, sitting in his little hut? Maybe it's some Hollywood premiere he's been dying to go to. Who knows with Aaron Rodgers? But Aaron Rodgers, unexcused absence on the first day of mandatory minicamp. I always think of life as situational, right? Sometimes this kind of stuff doesn't matter. Like if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're in the height of your power in Green Bay and you've just gone to 2 straight NFC championship games and the first day of mandatory minicamp, you have an unexcused absence for whatever reason. You want to, binge watch Ted Lasso. I don't know. That's one thing. But last year with the Jets, you played, 3-4 plays, blew Achilles. The season was cratered. The team's postseason hopes were cratered. And now you're all coming back. Jobs are on the line with the Jets. This is a very important season in New York. Very important season for you, Aaron Rodgers. After what happened last year and the fact you're a year older and the fact a lot of people are thinking, Aaron Rodgers' best ball is behind him. You would think Aaron Rodgers is motivated to show everybody that he can pull off this Tom Brady thing and play well into his 40s or whatever at a high level. Also, your team is kind of kind of important, like I said, important season. Playing with a bunch of new players. I feel like that's when you come to mandatory minicamp. Call me crazy. If nothing else, and sometimes this is just fertilizer, but sometimes I think it's real. You're looked at as the leader of this football team. You just are. That's who you are. You kind of put yourself in that prism also because we got to hear you blab so much on Pat McAfee. So if you're going to be the leader and you had that, what was the line? His bleep, this was a quote from Aaron Rodgers. Bleep, bleep, that has nothing to do with winning needs to get out of the building. Talking about the Jets facility. So basically you're saying, no nonsense, we're all about winning, we're all in, anything else is bleep, bleep. Well, you not showing up at mandatory minicamp, that's bleep, bleep. It has nothing to do, could have something to do with putting a successful foundation down for the season moving forward. Now, again, if the Jets go out and crush it this year and they make the playoffs and they have a wonderful postseason, no one cares about Aaron Rodgers not showing up at mandatory minicamp. I know that. You know that. But right now, where this franchise is, it would have been nice for the leader or the guy that's looked at as a leader and the guy that's put his face out there a ton to be at mandatory minicamp. If nothing else, to show the example how important it is for everyone to be here and for us to kind of, get ourselves started off the right way for 2024. Again, we don't know what the important thing was, to be fair to Aaron Rodgers, but just not a good look. Not a good look for Aaron Rodgers, not showing up. All right, Ed Bird, we're going to get to this here in just a little bit. We're going to come back here in a few minutes. Paul Manieri, Tyler did a great job of digging up some sound from Paul over the last few years. We're going to get back in here and go over that here in just a few minutes. Paul Manieri, his thoughts about milestones and championships and things of that nature. Because, he's interesting to listen to. We played a couple of cuts today. Matt Moscona talked about it from ESPN Baton Rouge, 104.5, just about, how open the guy is to the media and how he maybe sometimes says things that coaches probably shouldn't say. But he's also kind of got that philosophical vibe to him. And he's just very interesting to listen to. And he's going to be interesting for the media. I had national media guy text me yesterday saying, you media folks are going to love this guy. This guy's going to talk to you. He's going to give you some great answers. They're thoughtful, introspective type stuff. You and the media will enjoy Paul Manieri. So we shall see. But we'll get into that, play another Paul Manieri cut from, I think it was 2020, 2021, 22, 2021 window of some of his thoughts about winning championships and things of that nature. One other topic before we get out of here on what's trending at 2 and then focus back on South Carolina baseball. Obviously, Danny Hurley turned down the Lakers. That's been a big national story. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, Woj, talked about Hurley turning down the Lakers yesterday on SportsCenter. That's cut 4, Ed Bird. Let's grab cut 4 real quick. Woj on Danny Hurley turning down the iconic Lakers.
Shay, Dan Hurley just informed his players, his administration, that he's turned down the Lakers job. He's going to remain at UConn, chase a third straight national championship. I'm told he was offered a 6-year deal worth $70 million. That would have put him among the top 6 highest paid coaches in the NBA. The Lakers were relentless in their pursuit of Hurley, but ultimately his opportunity to make history at UConn, to win a third straight title, to do that for the first time potentially since the John Wooden UCLA teams was too much to walk away from at UConn. Obviously, back-to-back national championships, and Dan Hurley was really taken away by the Lakers' courtship. He spent Friday out in LA with his family, with Rob Pelinka, Jeannie Buss, and there was a lot of momentum walking out of that room that night. I'm told, that Dan Hurley very well could be the next Lakers coach, but he came back east, and ultimately, I think the timing of this, again, with a team that's preseason top 5, Alex Karaban, his best returning player, returning to school, pulling out of the draft, a lot of factors.
Here's my thing. If you're Danny Hurley, what are you going to say out loud? Or what are you going to say to people that, will put your stuff out in the media? Of course, you're going to say, man, that was really impressive. Those Lakers, I was blown away by everything. Wow, they really, it was something else, man. They were, tough to turn down. Of course, you're going to say all that stuff. You don't want to blow up any bridges. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. All I know is this. Danny Hurley's not going to be the head coach of the Lakers, which I think is going to be good for both parties. I don't think Danny Hurley, if you watch Danny Hurley coach, I mean, his head's about to explode coaching 30-some games. Can you see him coaching 82? Danny Hurley's losing his mind in a game in January, taking on the Washington Wizards. Yeah. How was Danny Hurley going to deal with the superstar NBA player? Because they run the show. Coach doesn't run the show. Again, college coaches, they have a real tough time succeeding in the NBA. They just do. Look at the track record. We went over it a few days ago. Let's look at the money, though. This is the other thing. 6-year contract right now Danny Hurley has at UConn, making $6 million a year, roughly, almost $6 million a year. Has some performance-based incentives as well. I'm guessing that contract is going to go up. I think he probably got a bump to stay at Stores. The Lakers offered 6 years at $7 million. That puts him, I think, what Woj said, in the top 6. And look, I mean, Danny Hurley has coached as many games in the NBA as Ed Bird. But he had all the leverage. He had all the juice. If you're going to go about, roughly 11-point-some million a year, you have to sweeten that offer somehow if you really want him. Do you go up more years? Do you go up more total money? I don't know. If you really wanted him, you probably had to pump that offer up, and he might still turn you down. But at the end of the day, Danny Hurley was set to make almost double the money he's making at UConn with the Lakers. I think UConn kicked his salary up. Now, I'll be honest with you. Did Danny Hurley just do this courtship just to get a bigger deal at UConn? Maybe. Because he kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? How much of this was agent saying, Danny, the Lakers tiptoeing around you, or they put out some feelers or something. What do you think? If nothing else, we maybe get more money out of UConn. I don't know. It was a very strange, quick, sudden courtship that went nowhere. At the other day, you blame the Lakers because you're the Lakers. You should seal the deal. Maybe Danny Hurley never really wanted the job, and if I'm looking at the Lakers organization, I'm Danny Hurley, I don't want the gig. Dysfunction is everywhere. The stink of dysfunction is all over that crew. But very interesting. There's Woj with his thoughts on Danny Hurley turning down the Lakers. Let's come back. Paul Mainieri. Let's hear from Paul, the soon-to-be new head coach at South Carolina. Coming up next on What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Ed Bird on the game. We talk about the Nest all the time, 1331 Gadsden in the Vista. We always say give them a call, 803-978-2025. Set up an appointment, go in and talk about what you're looking for. What you want to do to your home. Appliances, plumbing, hardware, lighting fixtures, tubs, sinks, whatever the case. And it's easy. You go to their website, thenestshowroom.com. You can see all sorts of things. Like I just went to the appliances. They've got cooktops, microwaves, ranges, refrigerators, washers, a ton of different brands. Like just for fun, I click on a microwave. Bunch of different microwaves. Different, whatever you're looking for. They got Samsung. They've got different sizes, all sorts of things. And that's just looking at microwaves. The showroom is gigantic, all sorts of different things. So call the Nest, 803-978-2025. Set up and make your dreams come true for your home by calling the Nest in the Vista. Halftime show with Terry Ford and Ed Bird as we do What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Paul Mainieri, soon to be the new baseball coach at South Carolina. We'll see if the Board of Trustees meeting at 4 today, how many coaches' salaries are approved or contracts are approved. There's 3 out there. There's baseball, golf, and softball. So we'll see where that goes. But the thought is, do you wrap up all 3 today? the talk has been they want to get the baseball coach contract done first before the other two. We'll find out what happens today at 4 o'clock again. And Jay and Elijah will be on doing the postgame show, and I'm sure they'll have some folks on to talk about it after the Board of Trustees meeting before 6 o'clock. All right, Paul Mainieri, Tyler did a really nice job of pulling some sound from Paul Mainieri from the last few years. We heard from him earlier about retiring a bit earlier, also his fatherly coaching style. And now here's Mainieri talking about how he's not concerned with milestones, just championships. This is from 2021. Hit it, Ed.
And then as you go through and you get older and you're not really concerned with milestone wins, you're concerned with winning championships. You're concerned with the development of young people that have been entrusted to you by their parents. You want to help them develop into men. You want to, you realize why you went into coaching. Mm-hmm. And it's for the reasons that I just mentioned, to impact young people's lives. So the milestone wins didn't mean as much to me as we went down the line until we won my 1,012th win, because that tied my father for his career wins. That was pretty significant for me. I get a little emotional when I think about it. But now, hey, listen, I just want to see LSU win as many games as we can. It's not Paul Mainieri winning the games, of course. And I think one thing that it does demonstrate, though, is that we've had a long career. We've had wonderful kids for many, many years. I'm now beginning my 39th year as a college baseball coach, my 15th at LSU. And I've enjoyed it, and I've just been the luckiest guy in the world to be able to do something that I love doing, which is being around baseball, coaching baseball, and being around young people and representing a wonderful institution. And, it's a lot more fun to win than lose. So let's see if we can't win a few more before we call it quits.
And there's Paul Mainieri talking about, winning championships, which, he's got himself one. He's played for it one other time in 2017, been to Omaha many times, tons of supers. So Paul Mainieri's like, look, I just want to win championships. And again, the thought is, with that track record coming to South Carolina, the hope is, Terry Rooney, the report is his former pitching coach and the recruiting coordinator now at LSU, is going to be on staff as the pitching coach. Also, Monty Lee, the word is he will stay, which will be also important to the staff. Just a good baseball guy, good recruiter. No South Carolina, obviously. Has helped keep the roster together so far. Not losing any of the important pieces into the portal. I think Paul Mainieri is a really good hire. You're not going to find a better coach out of the available candidates. It's nothing against Pollard or Godwin or Walter or anybody else who was up for this gig. But Paul Mainieri, he's won everywhere. The concerns, like I said, understandable. 3 years away from the games, going to be 67 years old, started the season, had the health issues with the neck and the back. But Paul Mainieri is a guy that if, those concerns aren't concerns, he's the guy that can win. And I think John Whittle hit it the best earlier with Mainieri, is that he'll have a staff around him who has been through this NIL portal stuff. They get it. And Mainieri can lean on them. And they can help him get through it. So I think Paul Mainieri is a really good hire. How it got there, who knows? Might have been smooth, might have been bumpy. But if the result is getting South Carolina back to who they used to be in the world of college baseball, then Paul Mainieri will end up being a phenomenal hire by Ray Tanner. We talked about it before, the Lamont Paris thing. That didn't look very smooth. But now nobody cares. Nobody cares. Because look what Lamont did in year 2. And we know what Paul Mainieri can do. You see it. All you got to do is go look it up. Use Google. So, like the hire a lot. We'll see where it goes. Have a good staff. You got one more person to put in the staff. We've got people, of course, our text line or our social media talking about Landon Powell. Bring in Landon Powell. Have him be an assistant. This would be great. Well, did Landon Powell want to leave being a head coach to be an assistant, even though it's in the SEC and it's a power league and all that stuff? Might not want to do it. but that has been talk about, getting Landon Powell on the staff. But so far with Rooney and Lee, if that's where it's going, Paul Mainieri has done a really nice job with 2 members of the staff, and he still has 1 to go. Obviously, we'll continue on with your thoughts on our Twitter X poll, 1075 on Twitter X. So far, an astounding thumbs up. 86% are on board with Paul Mainieri as the head coach at South Carolina. 14%, and most people are talking about age or being out of the game for 3 years and can he adjust to the new world. Again, legit. But I just think the number one thing is the health. Is that going to pop back up again? Because that's the reason he left LSU. And we'll continue on with our Paul Mainieri conversations. Obviously, we'll get more of your text, 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse Sub text line or text the hours coming up in just a little bit. But up next, we got the greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And we'll continue on with the discussions of Paul Mainieri as the new baseball coach at South Carolina. We'll keep that going all day here on The Game. Greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK here on the game. We'll get back to talking Paul Mainieri, who will be the new head baseball coach of South Carolina. Board of Trustees meeting at 4. We'll go back, check our Twitter X poll, your comments, text line your comments as well at 803-404-6100. Our Firehouse Sub text of the hour is coming up shortly as we continue talking a ton of Paul Mainieri and the fact that a guy with that kind of resume who has been out of the game for 3 years, though a guy he's a winner. We're talking about getting a winner in here, a guy that's been to Omaha. Well, this guy's been a winner, and he's been to Omaha. We'll talk more about Mainieri here in just a little bit. Greatest day in the history of the world, like we said, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Interesting. Now we're getting to that baseball, tennis, hockey, golf part of history. Last year, French Open, Novak Djokovic won his men's record 23rd Grand Slam singles title. Again, Djokovic might not be the most well-liked player in tennis history, but he'll go down as the greatest male tennis player in history. Charles Schwartzel hung on to win the first live event on this day in 2022. That'll be a huge trivia question. You can win beers at the bar with that one. On this day in 2012, LA Kings won the NHL championship. I know LA Kings winning the NHL championship. First of two they won in a short period of time, if I remember, in that little span. But the Kings won their first at that time. Also on this day in sports history, Nolan Ryan in 1990 threw his sixth no-hitter of his career. 43 years old, threw his sixth no-hitter. Rangers beat the A's 5-0. Ryan becomes the first to pitch no-hitters for 3 teams and becomes obviously the oldest to throw one at 43 years old. Dude was ridiculous. Early in his career, he was really wild, walked a ton of folks. Then as he got older, repertoire, he got sharpened. The curveball was really good to go with a fastball. He's throwing like 1,000,000 miles an hour. But and I know people will go to stats and people who will go, oh, look at how many career losses he had and this, that, and the other and everything. And I get it. But Nolan Ryan he's one of a kind, man. And the fight with Robin Ventura is still the best. He's got Ventura in the headlock and he's noogieing him on the head. Ventura, you charge the mound. Dude's like in his 40s and you're in your 20s and he kind of got the best of you. But Nolan Ryan, 6th no-hitter on this day in 1990. 1984, Celtics beat the Lakers 111-102 in Game 7 to win their 15th NBA title. I was talking about, I was down the whole rabbit hole of 30 for 30s on Sunday, and one of them was the Celtics-Lakers leading up to, their finals battles in the 80s. And just the history of the two franchises as they got to that point. It was really interesting. And it was getting into that 1984, series when that 30 for 30 stopped. And then they went to college baseball. But the Celtics and the Lakers, 1984, Celtics won a very hard-fought 7-game series. And the Lakers had never beaten the Celtics ever. If you go back through the 60s, they'd never beaten the Celtics in the NBA Finals or the championship series. Ever. But I always think those things are funny really quick. Is like in 1984, you're playing for, let's say, the Lakers, you lose to the Celtics. Well, it has nothing to do with losing in the 60s because you weren't there. You're probably a baby. We're not born when some of those Celtics teams beat the Lakers. It's like that has nothing to do with nothing. These guys aren't those guys. They just got beat by a really good team. And then the Lakers, of course, snapped that quote-unquote curse against the Celtics moving forward in the 80s and did beat Boston in the finals. I always loved that. It's like, you want to look up and go, look, what happened 30 years ago, I wasn't around. I really can't tell you anything about it. That's more like with fan bases and maybe organizations people who have been there. If you're a player and you just show up and, you didn't have anything to do with losing to this crew 20 years ago. Like some of the Red Sox said that when they broke that curse and finally won the World Series. They're like, oh, we weren't around for all this mess. We weren't there when the ball went under Bill Buckner's legs or the Red Sox traded Babe Ruth for money and some hamburgers or whatever. Again, curses are just excuses for why you don't win. That's all. All right, in this day, in 1982, Larry Holmes stopped Jerry Cooney in the 13th round for the WBC heavyweight title. Holmes, for a long time, was an undefeated heavyweight champion. Was never looked at as one of the greats, but it wasn't a great era when Holmes was winning the championship. But, he was a guy for a while. Nobody could beat Larry Holmes. Seattle Slew goes wire to wire at the Belmont to win the Triple Crown back in 1977. That was the year, I'm going by memory, before Affirmed won the Triple Crown the next year, I believe in 78. So there's the greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Yeah. We have a craft beer card. You might have heard of it. $30 a brewery, 12 craft beer locations, $360 value. You can get it for only $79. All you do is go to 1075thegame.com, you click on Sweet Deals, and you purchase yourself a beer card, and then have at it. Craft beer away at a bunch of different places. Jay and Elijah on Thursday will take the post-game show to one of our craft beer roadshow spots, Angry Fish in Lexington. They'll be there from 3 to 6. Angry Fish, fantastic place. Sample a bunch of craft beers. I love their slogan. It's sort of like we drink as much as we can and we sell the rest. So Jay and Elijah will be at Angry Fish in Lexington 3 to 6 again this Thursday. And please feel free to go to 1075thegame.com and check out the craft beer card. $79. Get you $360 worth of craft beer drinking. So you can check that out, 1075thegame.com. All right, we'll get back Firehouse Sub text of the hour, and we're going to spin through our Twitter X poll and get some comments in as well on the hiring of Paul Mainieri as the new baseball coach at South Carolina. Again, the Board of Trustee meeting is coming up at 4 p.m. today. We'll see what shakes out there. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Ed Bird, till 3 on the game. Firehouse subtext the hour, and we're going to really dig into more of our comments from our Twitter X poll on Paul Maneri's hiring as the new South Carolina baseball coach. Board of Trustees meeting again at 4 o'clock. We'll see what shakes down there. But the feeling is only a matter of time before this gets taken care of. Also, the word is out there that Monty Lee will stay and be part of the staff. And Terry Rooney, who was Maneri's pitching coach at LSU and is a recruiting coordinator now for the Tigers, will be on Maneri's staff as the pitching coach here at South Carolina. Right now, 86% loves the hiring of Paul Maneri, 14% not so down with it. Here's a couple of comments, or Firehouse sub comments of the hour. I mean, do we have a choice? Not really, so just buckle up and hope for a safe ride with a few stops in Omaha, LOL. As long as we win and get back to Gamecocks baseball, I support it. Another comment, 1 year older than Bruce Pearl. If he was hired as our basketball coach, fans would be loving it. By the way, NC State coach heading to Omaha, same age as Paul Maneri. I like the hire, and with Monty Lee and Rooney, I think it's a great staff. Also, we got a bunch. Proven winner. Should be able to get the program back where it needs to be. Proven winner. More proven winner. Very happy with the hire. The age thing, and it is interesting because what Elliot Avent at NC State, I believe, is 68. But he's been at NC State a long time. So I think 1997 is when Avent showed up at NC State. And if, Paul Maneri was still at LSU, no one would be talking about the fact Maneri's 67 years old. But he stepped away for 3 years. Health issue. We talked to Matt Moscona from 104.5 ESPN in Baton Rouge. It was a neck thing. Some folks have said he was also a little back, but mostly a neck thing. And, Maneri, he's ready to roll. So, obviously, he feels healthy, and this issue's behind him. But, yeah, with me, the age isn't a thing. It just isn't. It's the energy level. How sharp are you? And do you understand? I think we were talking earlier, it's like, all right, you're not 47 or 37 anymore, or 57 for that matter. Do you start to delegate more things to more folks to, keep you on a path and a pace that you can handle today? You've got a staff that is, if we do see Rooney and Lee, a staff that's been dealing with NIL and transfer portal, so they get it. So, yeah, you got to kind of catch up on it because you've been out of the game for 3 years, but you got folks around you who can help you navigate those waters because they've been through it. They're swimming in it. Maneri, to me, is a really good hire. I just think he's a guy that can get you where you want to get back to. How long? I don't know. For some folks, that matters, and that's fine. For me, I don't think it matters. I think it matters getting South Carolina back to who they used to be. Now, I thought was interesting earlier, though, was a comment, not a quote. Mark Etheridge from D1 Baseball and Matt Moscona from Baton Rouge both brought up resources, commitment, NIL dollars. So with South Carolina, the perception is you've got to kick your commitment up. That it's not at the bottom, but can it kick up higher? Are you going to be all in like these other programs? That seems like where the concern is with folks that cover this sport or in the media who know the sport. That's their concern. Is, not Maneri, but will South Carolina spend in this arms race that is NIL in the SEC for baseball? One of the things I did hear, though, is that Jay Phillips has made a huge donation, a six-figure donation to South Carolina baseball.
Yes.
Did you hear that?
6 pretzel sticks. Very lined up nicely. About all I can afford. I work in sports talk radio.
I was going to say,
South Carolina.
We're in radio.
Yeah.
We might combine. We might be able to get one of those little small bags.
Yeah.
And we
those
can
are good,
donate.
at least it'd be the name brand.
Oh, yeah, we're not
Rolled
that
gold,
bad.
baby. Rolled gold.
Rolled gold, not bad.
Oh, they're fine.
I like the Utz, too.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The Utz are solid.
Hanover,
All right.
Pennsylvania.
So you were on the air yesterday when the Maneri thing pops.
Wasn't quite ready for that, Terry.
No, none of us were. None of us were. And now you've had almost 24 hours to kind of digest it. Where are you at?
I like it. I like it. Look, I will not shy from the fact that if you had said, Jay, who are your top two choices going in with, a virtually unlimited pool of candidates, I'm going to say 1A, 1B, Tom Walter and Chris Pollard. And I'll still hold to that. But I've had my reasons for that. I will also say that I texted a friend this morning that I don't know if a week ago that even Paul Maneri had Paul Maneri on his Gamecock baseball head coach bingo card. Like, I don't know when he entered the fray. That's one of the things. But that now that he has, listen, it checks a lot of boxes. The one that it might not check for people is someone who's going to be able to do it for an extended period of time.
Can I ask you a question about that, though? And John Whittle and I were yipping about this around 12:30.
I know him.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Nice guy. So if Paul Maneri comes in here and in 5 years gets his program back to competing to go to Omaha, let's say you get to Omaha. Let's get a couple supers, you get to Omaha. And at the end of that 5-year run, he says, you know what? I'm going to peace out. Who's going to be upset? The program will be where it belongs, and it'll be in much better position for hope you get the next dude who's going to be able to keep it going from where it's at. And that's always an unknown. But I feel like I get that feeling of, long-term. What is long-term anymore?
Yeah, that's a fair question. And, look, how's he feeling? How's he doing? I mean, he'll be 67 when the season starts, but that's okay. I think
that's not a thing with me either.
We watch medical science continue to improve to the point that if he's still hungry for it, then, it'll be fine. Look at Greg Popovich just signed a big extension.
He's turned 104.
Yeah.
I mean, you dude at NC State, 68.
Elliott Avent. Yeah.
No one's talking about that right now.
And they're going to the College World Series. And he even, in his postgame last night, I thought Tom Hart did a great job of asking him that. And he's like, well, I guess I forget exactly how he worded it, but basically it was like, well, the sunset's not here yet, or something like that. Some kind of old folksy, Elliott Avent type thing. I thought it was also very nice of how Coach Avent thanked Ray Tanner and many others for getting him where he is today. But no, listen, Paul Maneri checks all of the baseball coach boxes that you want. High-level developer, high-level recruiter, championship-level coach in the, arguably, as I said yesterday, with all due respect to my lifetime of following that program, so many years at Sarge Fry Field and now at Founders, what Skip Bertman turned LSU into made LSU the most dominant and also the most dominant program and also the program with the single highest amount of yearly expectation placed upon it. And Paul Maneri went to multiple World Series, National Coach of the Year on 2 occasions, all kinds of major leaguers. Yeah, I mean, he's done it, and he's done it with great consistency. And he will bring that mentality here. I'm not really worried. You hit on the point as I was walking in. One of the things I said last week, Ray Tanner, they want you to hire somebody with your kind of resume, and they want you, Ray Tanner, to be the AD like you had that supported you to turn your program into the best program in America, which did happen, Terry. It did.
Right.
It did.
That's where this was at.
They were the best program in America, and Ray had that full university support. Are they going to do that now? I think they will. Otherwise, I don't think a man like Paul Maneri comes out of retirement to take the job.
Right? He doesn't have to.
Right.
He had to say, Ray, I love you to death, but here's what I need.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to show up because, I got a rep here too.
And don't BS me, Ray. Not to say that Ray would, but I mean, hey, I don't want to be coming to you in 18 months going, hey,
right.
Well, where's the support we agreed upon, or anything like that. So I don't, that's the next.
And I think Ray would have so much respect for Maneri, he wouldn't do that.
Right.
So I think
I like it. Listen,
I like it too.
It wouldn't have been choice one, if only because I don't know if he was I didn't know he was a choice.
Well, let's do this really quick. We don't have much time. If you knew he was in the running from the beginning, we put him with Walter and Pollard and
McDonald
Godwin, and McDonald.
Yeah.
Would he be your number one guy?
I honestly probably not my number one guy. I might still be leaning like Chris Pollard as total overall number one because Chris is in his 40s. And I think has that different kind of vision.
Or he could be the guy for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, like this is his destination. long term. But, that's an interesting hypothetical. But I think it's a very good hire.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, our buddy Matt Moscona, ESPN Baton Rouge.
We just had him. You can talk to him, too.
Oh, good. All right.
We're all going to talk to him.
All right, good.
All right.